Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Indiana State Bar Association's House of Delegates. My name is Judy Calhoun from Muncie, Delaware County, and it's my honor to serve as your chair of our House of Delegates, and officially, to use my official gavel, I call this meeting to order. Thank you. As you know, this is unlike any other House of Delegates. If you've been here before, we've never had situations like COVID-19. It's forced us all to rethink how we operate. For us, that's mean we have some delegates attending in person, and I thank you. We also have some connecting virtually, and I thank them as well. We believe we have the technology and the plan in place to manage today's meeting, but we're in uncharted waters. We appreciate your patience as we navigate this journey together. Fingers crossed, it's all gonna go well. And I really would be remiss if I did not thank Joe and the entire staff of the ISBA. They're amazing. Thank you so much for all that you guys have done to make this possible, to make not only the office run smoothly virtually, but especially the annual meeting.
Hear, hear.
With me today on the dais is Mr. Dirk Stahl from Evansville. He's our parliamentarian. And I have to, point of personal privilege, I also served on him as a young lawyer. I was the young lawyer chair 1 year below Dirk. So thank you very much, Dirk. Also our secretary is Andrea Townsend from Indianapolis. Thank you. And our chair-elect, Michael Jositis from Crown Point, who is also a young lawyer chair as well and on my board. So I thank them all for their help today. I'd also like to recognize the Chief Justice of Indiana, the Honorable Loretta Rush, who will be joining us virtually later. And want to thank Connor Reporting for their time and efforts to create the verbatim transcript of this meeting. We will begin by hearing from the chair of the Committee on Credentials and Admissions, Renee Ortega of Hammond, who is going to be joining us virtually. Renee, please unmute your microphone.
Morning. I hope everybody can hear me. Madam Chair, it is my pleasure to report that all members present are properly certified as delegates and a quorum is present.
Thank you, Ms. Ortega. Now we are here from the Chair of Rules and Calendar, Mr. Patrick McEwen from Portage, who is also joining us virtually. Patrick, you may unmute your microphone.
Madam Chair, I move that the calendar as provided be accepted as the order of the day.
Thank you, Ms. McEwen. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the calendar as the order of the day, please say aye. If you're attending in person.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Virtual delegates, please vote now via the poll that now appears on your screen. One of my trusty co-workers up here can tell me what the vote is.
100%.
Fantastic. Thank you. The calendar is now approved. I love in 2020, who knew the words we're going to say more often were, please unmute your own microphone. Or before you get dressed in the morning, it's not the earrings you put on or the necklace, it's deciding whether you're going to use your lawyer mask. Don't make me use my lawyer voice. Just a fun mask. Or for me, the sparkly mask. Who knew that was going to be part of our new wardrobe? We now have the privilege of hearing from our president of the association, Ms. Leslie Craig Herndsaw of Noblesville.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for the opportunity to address this House. I think everything is collected here. Let's hope I remain on this little podium. How refreshing and joyous the world would be if we could heal those who are sick, bring back those who we've lost, and restore the predictability of our pre-COVID-19 daily lives and practices. In one vein, it seems like it should be mid-March. However, in another sense, it feels like these past 7 months have hurled us through a decade of advancements and adaptations to technology and innovative solutions for rapid and efficient delivery of legal services, education, and jurisprudence. Madam Chief Justice, if you're listening, what a kickstart 2020 has been to your innovation initiative that was announced and ordered only a year ago. So what have we accomplished this year? How do these accomplishments drive opportunities, our strategic plan, and the future of our ISBA? We started by gathering our committee and section chairs along with the Board of Governors to orient them to the inner workings of our organization and with the fortitude created by all efforts moving in the same direction, albeit different initiatives, but still to accomplish common goals. We redesigned and revitalized our website, Race Justi, the addendum newsletter, and messaging so all are completely available virtually, easily, and with improved functionality. We began our work to learn about drivers of change, which impact our members, their practices, and their relationship with the ISBA, to use in collecting relevant and evidence-based information for creating a strategic plan in the coming year. We collaborated with the Supreme Court, the Appellate Court, past presidents of the ISBA, and the Indiana Bar Foundation to create an event in celebration of great change and social equality and American history, the women's suffrage movement, and 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. While attending the ABA House of Delegates, your Indiana delegate stood resolute with lawyers across the country against big businesses' ambush on the practice of law. It claimed lawyers with their ethics, rules of evidence, analysis, and careful consideration of facts are simply too slow, behind the times, and unable to supply consumers with legal services at a pace necessary to meet consumer demand. A united front of delegates, Indiana included, who opposed non-lawyers owning law practices, among other things, overcame the overreaching portions of the resolution necessary to maintain ethical standards and protect our profession. Then, March dropped COVID-19. Because our executive director, Joe Skeel, is constantly scanning the environment for opportunities and possible threats, he watched circumstances unfold overseas in January, and he and staff began necessary changes to our organizational infrastructure. By early March, weeks before Governor Holcomb's shutdown order, staff was already working remotely and preparing for operations which have now distinguished Indiana as the gold standard among state bar associations. Proudly, Indiana has achieved this distinction in collaboration with, rather than to the detriment of, other bar associations and legal stakeholders in our state and across the country. When resources, information, and tools were not readily available to our members and their clients in need, we began to create our own programming, toolkits, and resources regarding up-to-the-minute critical topics. Our goal was to stay ahead of members every step of the way, to ascertain critical information and then serve as a guiding voice. Within days of the shutdown, we transformed in-person programming to virtual because our members needed immediate help and solutions. We pushed up the solo small firm conference from the original June date to April and hosted more than 500 people for the first ever virtual conference. Within minutes of issuance, we immediately disseminated guidance and orders from the Supreme Court and the governor. We began hosting virtual barside chats with key decision makers to provide members with current information such as temporary closing of the courts, the CARES Act, and the Paycheck Protection Program, the impact on and employability of recent law school graduates, the bar exam, and coping mechanisms promoting positive mental health. Our guests included Chief Justice Loretta Rush, Justice David, Senator Todd Young, newly inducted IU McKinney School of Law Dean Karen Bravo, Deputy Counsel to the Governor and ISBA Leadership Development Academy graduate Cindy Carusco, Executive Director Terry Harrell and Loretta Oleski from the Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program, and Bar Association directors from across the state. The ISBA's COVID-19 response work received national recognition. Our Reopening Your Practice guidelines were published by the American Bar Association and used by other associations across the country. Most recently, this week, we were contacted by the National Council of Bar Presidents to advise regarding our annual meeting and the 3 separate experiences available for members, which include virtual by way of this live stream, in person with safety measures, attendance caps, personal care kits, and social distancing, and recorded so that members may watch the events of the meeting at their convenience. Very few organizations, if any, are doing what ISBA has done this week and offering a hybrid means of safely and continuously conducting the business of our association and providing education, connections, and the cohesion of the annual meeting. Now we embark on perhaps our greatest challenge, the magnitude of which eclipses our prior successes and efforts to steadily assist members. While that work and strategic plan will continue as a priority, we have formed a task force to examine the role played by the law in social and systematic inequities illuminated by the murder of George Floyd in late May, and which sparked the civil unrest we are experiencing. The goal of this task force is to provide pathways to long-lasting improvements, mitigation, and solutions for tackling this social upheaval and promoting human rights. We have set aside time, funds, and other organizational resources to implement tactics and do, rather than merely speak, our part in affording equal justice under law. As we've been taught by the late and tremendous great Ruth Bader Ginsburg, ISBA will continue to fight for the things that we care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join us. In summation, 2020 has brought about success for ISBA in at least 5 categories. Relevance, ISBA has raised its profile both with its own members and across the country. Team culture, our staff has solidified its team culture so that each member can lead from their position and guide the ISBA in their respective areas of expertise, both in person and remotely. Communication, we have improved interaction and messaging with all members virtually, and particularly new and more seasoned members by developing membership categories to ensure everyone from law student to retiree has a place to plug in. Members are no longer required to be away from their practices, clients, or families to participate at ISBA. We take our programming, events, and association business to our members. Thus, we are truly able to reach members across Indiana from the very southern tip to the northernmost border, increasing our diversity, perspective, and opportunities for leadership. Fiscal responsibility. For the second year in a row, we have, despite the global pandemic, finished ahead of budget. Outreach. We have improved our partnerships and collaboration with stakeholders in the legal community, enabling us to create and implement essential skills education and programming based on the lawyer life cycle, from those in their first year of law school to those seasoned retirees and every stop in between. The ISBA is on strong footing. We continue to empower members to thrive professionally and personally through advocacy, education, and connections. I'm confident in the current state and the future of the organization as 125th anniversary year. Under Mike Tolbert's leadership in 2021, the ISBA will benefit from Michael's keen sense of business and the law and his compassion for others. His courageous leadership style will ensure the Indiana State Bar Association remains the leading voice of our profession. Madam Chairperson, Chief Justice Rush, past presidents, delegates, members who are viewing virtually, and other special guests, I thank you for the humbling privilege and career-defining honor of serving this noble organization and the opportunity today to address this House.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam President. I think everyone joins me in saying thank you for your leadership, your unwavering guidance, calm behavior throughout all of this. It's always like they'll remain calm. Leslie's here. We're good. But thank you. And thank you for your friendship. It has been an honor to serve on the Board of Governors with you, and we appreciate your leadership to the Indiana State Bar Association. I would like to invite, excuse me, Chief Justice Loretta Rush to share her report of the Indiana Supreme Court. Chief Justice Rush, you may unmute your microphone, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Well, aren't we ready to get rid of 2020? But it is good to be here. I'm still home recovering, have some lingering issues. I did not get the same cocktail that President Trump got on that, but it's great to be here and addressing you today. So greetings from the Indiana Supreme Court. I sense Steve David's presence in the House. Good morning, Justice David. So back in January of this year, I presented the State of the Judiciary and talked about the importance of connecting, convening, and collaborating. That was in a pre-pandemic world. Little did I know that those same principles have really done us well this year with lawyers, judges, justice stakeholders, all working through that lens of service. So hopefully in this current and hopefully soon post-pandemic world, our profession remains one of service. You as lawyers, us as judges, courts remain open, law firms remain open. So I want to start off by just giving a shout out to our hardworking Court of Appeals. They are pumping out opinions right now. I watched that. Chief Judge Cale Bradford, who early in his tenure, I mean, what a way to start your tenure as Chief Judge, has been incredibly helpful. When the State House closed, there's like pivoting. What do you do about, rotunda filing? What do we do about tolling deadlines? He co-chaired or vice-chaired the Marion County Judicial Selection. So just a great shout out to the hardworking Court of Appeals. They've not missed a step on that. And we want to welcome Leanna Weissman and also send a job well done to John Baker, who continues his service as the senior judge. So I'd be remiss to not thank Director Joe Skeel and President Leslie Hendersall. What unbelievable partnerships in this challenging year. And I was thinking about a theme, and I think this is it between the bench and the bar. You asked, we listened. We asked, you listened. So many of the issues that came before us for quick response, we'd said, well, what does the bar think? I mean, it could be something as all of a sudden our software didn't work for the bar review. We had to change that. We had to modify it. So we reached out to the state bar and the local bars. And then there were times where a law would, or a rule would have to be changed or adopted. And you would ask us, and we don't know everything. So we didn't understand people were struggling with regard to the, how do you sign a will remotely? So it has been a dance that I'm so proud of this year. And I really have to say, my almost 40 years as a lawyer and a judge, I don't know if the bench bar partnerships have ever been more important. The bar associations are a huge part of what we're doing. And this year's really played that out. So thank you, State Bar and all the local bars. So we've had a lot of collaboration on pandemic issues as they've arisen. It could be a lawyer just writing the court. It could be Joe or Leslie reaching out to us and bringing these issues to us. We adjusted distance CLE caps. We interpreted the statute to remote signing of wills and estate documents. We issued an order with remote witnessing of oaths for depositions and other legal proceedings. We did an order with regard to graduate legal interns. We did an order with regard to providing protections for CARES funds. We did a huge change to Administrative Rule 17, which allows for remote hearings at the trial and appellate level. We had task forces dealing and how do you get jury trials going? How do you start expanding court operations? And again, that bench bar partnership was huge. Once a week, Justice Dave and Justice Goff met on the phone with justice partners throughout the spectrum with regard to what issues they were seeing and the overlap. And as we would do emergency orders, we would have this bed of people to reach out. Okay, is this going to work? Is this not going to work? We provide guidance on family law issues, how to reopen courtrooms and provide for safe jury proceedings, and how to respond to backlogs of eviction and foreclosure cases. We continue to have membership on the Civics Education Task Force. Again, they've not missed a beat and continued. Because courts have been closed and you continue to serve your clients in many ways, I'm going to provide you just on some general update on the courts. Our business continues. Last year, we had about 1.3 million cases filed in Indiana courts. If you're wondering, how many attorneys do we have in Indiana? We have 18,763 active attorneys. Last year, the Supreme Court reviewed about 1,000 cases, 53% criminal, 33 civil, 10% attorney and judicial discipline. We held 44 oral. We are doing those remotely through November, and we're just sort of watching what the landscape looks like. We did 57 majority opinions, 23 non-majority. We had 62% unanimous decisions. I want to thank the attorneys for the last registered year of pro bono hours reported. We showed almost 9,000 or 55% of eligible attorneys contributed time. They contributed about over 250,000 no charge hours and almost 200,000 of reduced hours and contributed $1 million. So thank you for your time, talent, and treasures. So our Office of Admission and Continuing Education, we changed the rule and allowed for more before the pandemic and allowed for more distance learning. And in the first year we did that, we had over 60,000 hours reported by attorneys. And that was up from the year before, we had about 14,000. And this year, I think we're going to go through the moon on that. So we adjusted the order. We just did another order saying there is no cap on distance learning. Right now in this world that we're living in, you can list all your time as distant learning. And I've gotten a lot of great letters from attorneys that have reached out and said, you know, I feel isolated. I have some time to sit over the lunch hour and pick up a CLE. Can that count? So where do we go forward post-pandemic with regard to being together and the professionalism and stability that comes to being together to going to remote CLE? So there'll be more on that. We're really going to need you and your input on that to see what permanent changes we want to make. We had a 78% bar passage rate that we modified the bar exam several times. We've had 4 remote bar ceremonies. We thought it was very important that each of the admittees be able to step up to actually the Zoom camera, unmute, say their name, all kinds of funny things, cats walking in the background, bedrooms, family members, but it was really, it happened and we got that done. In February, we're hoping to do it live because it's a smaller number if we can social distance and do that with protections. Last December, the Study Commission on the Future of the Bar Exam submitted its final report recommending that we go to the uniform bar exam. We are working on that right now. Disciplinary commissions. Disciplinary complaints are down, might be post-COVID, but they've been kind of trending down anyway because you're all doing such fantastic work. We had over 1,100 complaints submitted that were summarily dismissed. We had 1,100 complaints were submitted, over 1,000 of them were summarily dismissed, 90 final orders of discipline. And a new feature that has really caught on is the commission received 121 requests for informal guidance. So if you think before you get yourself in a sticky wicket, reach out. And over half the inquiries were about client conflict of interest under Rule 1.7, declining or terminating representation, confidentiality. So just some ideas and a service. There's no cost. You can do it online and get that answered. The judicial discipline. There were almost 500 complaints filed against judges alleging judicial misconduct. 368 were summarily dismissed. And there's 29 judicial discipline actions the Commission's working on right now. One of my favorite programs, the Judges and Lawyers Assistance Program, has been really ramped up during this time, helping judges, lawyers, and law students with personal issues, addiction, mental health, age-related, and other. We did a change this year on the Supreme Court. We decided to get rid of the question on a character and fitness with regard to mental health. We're also removing it from our Court of Appeals application. We believe we don't want people to not get help because they're afraid it's going to come back up on their character and fitness. It's okay not to be okay is their motto. We don't ask people to talk about blood pressure or other things in that. So we did make a change in that. All calls for assistance are confidential. There have been over 5,000 attendees, JLAP presentations, 90 JLAP presentations. So a lot of their meetings have gone to video chat, but they're working hard. And the partnership on wellness with the state bar is just outstanding. Talking about the attorneys, these law school graduates were stressed to the max trying to figure out what was going to happen to their future and what the bar exam was going to look like. I heard from a lot of them who had lots of suggestions for me. So there was a lot of programming done, and I know Justice David in the State Bar worked on programming for these new admittees so that they start in this profession on a strong footing. And for this solo and small firm conference, JLAB presented a well-being message to over the 400 attendees. We'll talk briefly about where we are in court technology. I remember driving to the State House early in the pandemic, and I called Justice Sullivan. And I don't know if you all know this, but Justice Sullivan carried court technology on his back for many years. He took a lot of body blows trying to get court technology. We are not a unified state where the state pays for everything in courts. It's a combination of state and local funding. So to get the courts on one unified system, so you're as an attorney can sit at your desk and find out what's going on in your cases. So I did thank him, and I also need to thank Chief Justice Shepard for the groundwork he laid, Judge Mathias and Justice David for just a lot of hard work. And you know what, we're almost to the finish line. We only have a couple counties left, and they should be done by the end of 2021. 92% of the caseloads on Odyssey, and it's available to you. If you're a practicing attorney and you've never accessed a case on mycase.in.gov, go in there. It's a game changer. And it was really important to us that, unlike the federal system where you have to pay, we really wanted you to be able to access these cases and download documents without having that expense. So e-filing is available in all 3 appellate courts and trial courts across the state. There have been over 80 million, almost 8 million documents e-filed statewide. What did we do in the pandemic? How do we have hearings? How do we keep courts open when this all hit? And so what we did was we provided over 800 Zoom licenses. Some of the judges were trying to use that free Zoom that knocks you out after 45 minutes. It's really not conducive to justice being served. So we've purchased over 800. Those 800 have been used for over 20,000 hearings and meetings, with 150,000 people have participated through Zoom on justice-related matters. If you go to the court website, it's a very robust COVID website, we are live streaming hearings in many counties throughout the state. So let's say you're an attorney, you want to see what a judge, talk about transparency, you want to see what a court looks like in this county. While the case is on, you can live stream. And I know one jury trial in Whitley County, I think over 1,000 people were watching that. So there is a public platform. We've had over 60,000 court hearings streamed. So that's something that we're looking at. We were trying to, I have a weekly conference with other chief justices because we're all figuring out what's going on. And in Michigan, they use YouTube. And so when I told our judges, you can live stream on YouTube, they were like, and some are doing it on YouTube, but we wanted to have sort of that public setting. The hearing is up while the hearing's going on, but once the hearing's over, it's not archived, unlike the Court of Appeals. So in over 26 million court documents have been remotely accessed on my case since we started doing that. We've had 23 million different visitors. 23 different people have gone on there to download documents. And in 2020 alone, over 7 million documents have been assessed with over 4 million visitors. So it's moving, and there'll be a glitch, or we'll have an attorney say, well, what about this? And we love those, as we fine tune this. We've got the landlord tenant eviction facilitation mortgage foreclosure program online, and you can do that. So how did courts stay open? Under Administrative Rule 17, we already required every county to do a continuation of operation plan. Again, not being a unified system, it's not a one size fits all. When they were ready for jury trials in Marion County may be different than in Jennings County. So every county has a AR-17 order. You can go on the website and look at that. We continued to do last year Adoption Day. 300 children were adopted in 30 counties on Adoption Day. We now have an order saying that all adoptions can be open at this time, so people can access them remotely, and there's some requirements that you have to follow on that. President Hendershot talked about the innovation initiative. A couple years ago, we took a team to a national innovation initiative looking at where do we want to be as a justice system 5 years, 10 years from now. And we had a diverse group, and Dr. Skeel was there. So we established this innovation initiative in September 2019 to foster innovation in Indiana courts. There's 2 subgroups, the Family Law Task Force and the Technology Working Group. Here's just a couple of things that are coming soon. The Family Law Task Force has presented to the court a report and recommendations on implementing new principles for family law cases, including improvements on how courts manage those cases. A large part of, when you looked at debt collection, landlord, tenant, family law, that's a large chunk of the civil cases that are coming before. And some cases get stalled, they're on the dockets forever. How do we do that? So there's some national models there. And here's an example. The Family Law Task Force report recommends implementing a triage process to help manage case flow. So triage, early screening and assessment of cases to determine which pathway they should go on. Are children involved, not involved? It shouldn't take 2-3 years to get an uncontested divorce. So they also recommend the creation and utilization of case management standards, the implementation of timeframes for pretrial conferences. We will be posting on the Supreme Court website for recommendations soon. So take a look at us, give us, I know there's a lot of family law lawyers that are state bar members. Give us your feedback on that. A couple other technology items, online dispute resolution. We're piloting programs for ODR in 4 counties. We'll pilot in family law, and we're having 4 counties pilot in small claims. So there will be more coming. We're also looking at, this is sort of a neat feature for attorneys and parties with regard to a check-in process. You know, you go to court and there's a ton of cases and everybody's milling it around out in the hallway. How do you check in? So we're looking at doing that online. We'll be piloting first for Marion County Small Claims, Lawrence Township. We're also working on a way for parties and attorneys to check in electronically for their hearings. Courts can then use them and text you when your case is ready to go. Again, how do we utilize technology to make the administration of justice easy, more accessible, and who likes sitting around in the hallway for 4 hours? We're having and this is another thing which I really like, that we're working on a dashboard for court documents. It's a one-stop court dashboard on my case to allow attorneys to view the documents in all the cases that they participate. Could you imagine just being able to log in and see what new documents have been done? You can look and search the most recent documents in all your cases on one screen without having to look in individual email messages for e-service, e-notice, and without having to go into the original cases. We're also working on legislation to take voting on attorney members from the JNC and JQC electronically instead of all those paper ballots. We're supporting some legislation this year. We're working on a long-term approach to CLE and distance learning. We really want to look at what we should keep on AR-14. AR-14 allows for remote hearings. So once we are past this, what's working? I mean, I get to talk to dozens of judges a week, and some judges are saying, I actually can get my hearings done quicker. The parties seem to like it. We get better cooperation. So which vestiges of this should continue? We will continue to make race and equity a priority of the court. And one of the things we're doing is including and gathering better data on the disparate impacts in the justice system to persons of color, whether it be in criminal, family, juvenile, or civil contexts. We're looking at a broader context within the 250 race and equity and 250 employees in the Supreme Court, and then in the justice system as a whole. We must do better. We must acknowledge the levers we can pull and the levers that we pull to help get there and go forward. We're looking at fees and fines, crippling fees and fines, people and bail. Pretrial reform through Criminal Rule 26 is in progress. We are certifying pretrial programs and tracking outcomes and data. The first group of data with regard to the outcomes on pretrial release are favorable. So we're looking at that, and it's one thing to look at. During this remote task force, our jail population went down probably almost 30% for low-risk nonviolent offenders that didn't have money to pay bail. So what can we keep of that to keep people working and not sitting in jail because they don't have the funds when they don't pose the risks on that? So the family law task and pathways. Many of you volunteered for the eviction facilitation program. It's slowly building. I think there have been 40 facilitations, if I'm correct. The federal moratorium is in place, but there's a large number of evictions out there. So remember that that is available to you. Our commercial court cases, commercial court became permanent, and we're looking right now with regard to whether we need to expand it this time. So in conclusion, stressful times, right? As we juggle work, worry about our loved ones, try to maintain vigilance of our own health, and really adapting. So we're learning today what works tomorrow, and it highlights our close relationship and why it's so important. So good luck. Your resilience, professionalism, and dedication working from your desks, your home, on Zoom, remote hearings, in person, allows us to respond to this crisis. And it would not be possible without all of you. So congratulations for the work that you're doing, for being resilient, showing the grit and adapted. And I'm so proud of our bench and bar for the partnership. So thank you, President Leslie Hendersall. She has just been a rock star this year. Talk about pivoting. And I really look forward to working with President-elect Michael Tolbert. So God bless you all. Stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Justice Rush. I want to thank you as well, and to the Supreme Court, for the guidance you have shown us over the past 7 months. I know many of you, if you're in court, I use Zoom daily for my court hearings, and it's amazing, the difference. I never thought I would like that, but thank you to all of the guidelines you've put in place to make it safe for us to continue to practice law, and we appreciate that. At this time, we would normally hear from the Court of Appeals and the Attorney General's office, but because this meeting is being conducted virtually, we opted to forgo those reports this year in order to keep the meeting as short as possible. Mr. Scott Barnhart, who's now the chair of the Indiana Bar Foundation, will now present his report from our friends at the foundation, and he's going to be joining us virtually as well. Scott, thank you.
Good morning. Thank you. It's good to be with everyone today, virtually or in person. As the Indiana Bar Foundation is about to celebrate their 70th birthday in November, I'm reminded that the tremendous impact has been made over the years. And you are a part of that impact. So the ISBA, the members of the judiciary, and the legal community have always been vital to the success of the foundation. We thank you for the time, the generosity, and the resources, both of time and finances, that you contribute to the mission of strengthening and expanding civil justice and civic education in Indiana. Today, I want to share the highlights of our important work and the impact that we are having on Hoosiers. First, the foundation focuses on ensuring access to civil legal services for low-income Hoosiers. Civil legal aid significantly impacts many of the critical societal issues, including safe and affordable housing, access to healthcare, workforce development, and economic community security. Having access to knowledgeable, helpful advocates to help understand and navigate our legal system is crucial to people's success in ensuring their rights are protected. Particularly now with COVID-19 and everything that everybody's going through, this is important now more than ever. This year, the foundation gave $1 million in interest on lawyers' trust account grants, also known as IOLTA, Indiana's Pro Bono Network, which is operating under a newly created umbrella, which is called the Pro Bono Indiana. IOLTA funds are wholly dependent on interest rates from lawyers' trust accounts, which means funds have recently declined by 80% due to reduction in interest rates to near zero. And we don't anticipate that changing anytime soon. So as we look into the forecast, I think that we're going to see that those rates will likely stay where they're at for at least the near future. Since 1999, the foundation has partnered with the Indiana Supreme Court to provide staff support under the Indiana's pro bono districts. Now Pro Bono Indiana and the Coalition for Court Access, the coalition which was launched in 2016 as a successor to Pro Bono Mission, serves as the central body focused on research, policy development, and support for Indiana's civil legal aid delivery system. We appreciate the participation and support of the ISBA staff members on the coalition as working groups. Without the ISBA and the lawyers contributing their time and resources to that, the program would not be the success that it is. The coalition has worked on several initiatives, including spearheading statewide civil legal aid studies and economic impact study, which showed a return of $6.7 for every dollar spent on civil legal aid in 2018, which is phenomenal. Launching a legal aid assistance portal called Indiana Legal Help to provide information, referrals, and forms. The website is averaging 95,000 views per month this year. Getting new core rules adopted, including rules that encourages retired attorneys to stay involved in the pro bono, and one that offers guidance to judges on best practices with self-represented litigants. And finally, convening the annual conference, which has brought over 200 people together to learn and network around issues including housing, family, consumer, reentry, and professional development. On October 30th, the coalition will be hosting its first virtual conference, and the ISBA members are encouraged to participate in that conference. The foundation and the coalitions aim to work closely with the ISBA to embrace more attorney referral components onto the Indiana Legal Help website, expand access to unbundled and limited scope services, to integrate technology and online tools to help people find pro bono and affordable legal assistance more easily, and to effectively communicate the value of hiring a lawyer to the public, particularly as we enter this virtual world. As the Chief Justice indicated, there are going to be some aspects of this that remain, and it's up to us as leaders in the community to transfer those and to direct those that need our services to areas where they can be most helpful. The other side of the foundation's mission is to educate Hoosier students through our civic education programs. Our largest civic education program is the We the People program. The We the People curriculum that teaches the history and the principles of the American constitutional democracy, enhances students' understanding of the government through interactive curriculum and authentic assessments. Research shows that high school students who study with this model vote at a higher rate than their peers and are respectful of dissenting opinions and voice their own opinions with support that. The We the People program, like this conference and many others, are moving online, and so that's going to change in terms of what that looks like. But we're hopeful that with the participation of lawyers that it'll continue to be the successful program that has been in the past. We also manage the Indiana High Schools Mock Trial Program, which offers an innovative approach to learning the law in our legal system in civil and criminal trials, giving students the opportunity to develop an understanding and appreciation for the law, court procedures, and the judicial system. In the 2019-2020 school year, the Bar Foundation's Civic Education Program has reached over 125 schools across Indiana, translates into more than 5,000 students annually. This year looks a little bit different as the competition for both programs are going virtual. The foundation is seeking volunteer judges and facilitators for 7 We the People competitions starting in November. More than 800 students will participate in that online program. Volunteering for virtual competitions allows you to participate from the convenience of your home or office. Please visit the Bar Foundation's website if you have interest in signing up for either of those programs. In addition to the Civic Education Program, the Foundation puts out a Civic Health Index biannually to measure how actively Hoosiers are engaged in their communities. The most recent edition recommended convening a task force to make recommendations on improving Indiana's civic education. The Civic Education Task Force, chaired by Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch, has spent the past year reviewing best practices and methods of teaching civic education and producing policy recommendations. The task force is finalizing its report this month and release its recommendation in November. And finally, those of us who are fellows of the Bar Foundation know that each year we celebrate a legend among us, someone who's practiced for over 50 years. This year, the very deserving legendary lawyer, whom I saw as a participant online, is Doug Church of Church, Hiddle, and Antrim in Noblesville. A virtual event will be honoring Doug and will be held on October 15th at 4:30. You can register for that event on the Foundation's website. We recognize that a strong ISBA creates a stronger community for all Hoosiers, and you have great supporters in the Foundation's mission to strengthen and expand civil justice and civic education. Your contribution of time, knowledge, and financial resources allows the Foundation to educate tomorrow's leaders, expand civil justice, and support the legal profession. So I thank you for the contributions to both to ISBA and also to the Bar Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnhart. And as the past chair of the Indiana Bar Foundation as well, I want to thank you for all of the hard work that the foundation continues to do as well. And just a note, if you have never watched We the People, I highly encourage you to do so. It's amazing. I judged on a national level one time, and I thought I was so scared because they knew more than I did, trust me. So I encourage you to at least judge or watch those if you can do so virtually. I'm sad to report that we've lost several colleagues over the past year, and I direct your attention to the Honors Committee report, which is also being shown on the screen as I read their names. I apologize if I mispronounce any of their last names. Dean Barnhart of Indianapolis, Donald Beckerich of Indianapolis, Robert Buter, Mishawaka, David A. Brooks, Couts, George Buskirk, Zionsville, Roy S. Dale, McAllen, Texas. Past President Jim Demos from Chicago, who was a friend not only of the ISBA, but the ABA. Jeff Dotson, Evansville. Andrew Eintertz, Noblesville. John Hageman, Evansville. Jason Kennedy, Chicago. Joseph Q. Locker, McKinney, Texas. William F. McNagny, Naples, Florida. Philip Onderdonk Jr., Carmel. James R. Pope, Avon. Rebecca Butler Power, Mishawaka. Magistrate Nanette K. Rundens of Dyer. James R. Reed, Lowell. Honorable James J. Richards of Munster. C. Michael Riley, Rensselaer. John F. Sullivan Jr., Carmel. John W. Van Buskirk, Indianapolis. Charles K. Whited, Crown Point. John E. Williams, Greenwood. And at this time, I would encourage any delegates, virtual delegates, either in person or well, to come forward if you would like to read any names of any of the colleagues that you've lost in your local bar associations. Hearing none in person, I don't think any of virtual as well. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor the dedication, contribution, and service of the people to the people of Indiana for those that we've lost. Thank you. I would now like to invite Litigation Section Chairman David Temple to the podium to share the section's recommendations. Once the report is presented, any in-person delegate who wishes to speak should move to the closest microphone, state your name and your county, and then begin. We ask that if you please don't touch the microphones for today's proceedings. Thank you. Any delegate who's attending virtually and who submitted a response to speak will call on you as well. David, you have the floor.
Thank you, fellow House of Delegates members, members of the court, and ISBA leadership. The litigation section is 829 members strong, 51 students of the law schools. We have submitted a amendment to our bylaws over the past 2 years. We've been working on them. The Board of Governors approved them earlier in June of this year. Specifically, the highlights of the changes are a succession plan for the vacancy, unexpected vacancy or voluntary vacancy of officers of the section, also vacancies of district members. We've also, this was done pre-COVID, but we did allow for electronic signature and emailing of votes and communications. Additionally, we had an attendance requirement for section council members to continue to be eligible to serve on the council. With respect to the removal of a section council member, we voted to impose a 2/3 voting requirement for that. We've not run into that problem, but in the event we do, we'd like to address that. In addition, there was some confusion. It was before I joined the litigation section council, but in 2000, our bylaws did not require that the House of Delegates approve our amendments, but in 2012, they did. We got approval from the Board of Governors in 2012, November of 2012. Apparently, House of Delegates, we never got the approval either in 2012, 2013, or 2014, or since that time, and therefore, in an abundance of caution, we're bringing this to you all for approval so that we can maintain, following our rules. And with that, that is the proposal that's before the House of Delegates. Happy to answer any questions, but thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has the Board of Governors taken position on this matter?
We have, and we approve.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the bylaws and the committee's recommendation in a second? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you. Second, thank you very much. Any discussion? Any discussion online?
No.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the section's recommendation, please say aye if you're in person.
Aye.
Any opposed? For the virtual delegates, please vote via the poll that now appears on your screen. Responses.
The votes we have are 99% approved.
Thank you. The motion passes. Thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Temple. I'd like now to invite the Utility Law Section Representative Joseph from Paula to share the section's recommendations. He'll be joining us virtually. Again, once the report is presented, any in-person delegate who wishes to speak should move to the closest microphone, state your name and your county, and then begin. And any virtual delegate who has requested to speak, we will call you by name. Mr. Rampala?
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to the House of Delegates today on behalf of the Utility Law Section of the State Bar Association. Like the litigation section, we are proposing changes to our bylaws. To my knowledge, the bylaws have not been amended at any time since the section was initially founded. And therefore, there's a lot of changes that have happened within the section since that time. And just to provide a brief overview of those to the House of Delegates for your consideration, I'll go through them. The first was really what I guess I would consider to be efforts to adjust the bylaws to make them a bit more inclusive in terms of addressing things like the use of chairman and make it a little less gender specific in that respect. A second was to address just a change that has actually occurred within the section as initially structured. The individual divisions, which are divided by up into the various practice areas within the utility bar, operated as sort of mini sections, or were anticipated to operate as such, but that in my roughly 14 years practicing with and participating in the section has never really been how it's operated. So we amended it to eliminate those provisions, or to adjust those provisions is a better way to say it. We also made some changes to the election of officers and representatives and the composition of the council for the section. And finally, like the litigation section, we have removed a provision within our bylaws that were, as the initially drafted, that would have required approval for the House of Delegates for approval for changes. We are still retaining approval by the section and ultimately approval by the Board of Governors before any additional changes can be made to the bylaws. I'm happy to take or address any questions.
Thank you. Madam Secretary, has the Board of Governors taken position on this matter?
We have, and we approve.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept this section's recommendation? Is there a second? Any discussion? Hearing none from the floor, is there any virtually?
We don't see any.
Thank you. All those in favor of approving the section's recommendation, please say aye if you're in person.
Aye.
Any opposed? Virtually, if you will vote via the poll that now appears on your screen.
Yep. 100%.
Thank you very much. The motion passes. And thank you to Mr. Rumpala.
Thank you, and I appreciate it. And I'd just like to extend a brief thanks to all the members of the section who over the last year worked very hard on this particular process.
You're welcome. I'd now like to invite the Articles and Bylaws Co-Chair, Terry Tolliver, to the podium to share the committee's recommendation. After the report is presented, wrong podium, Mr. Tolliver. He's trying to take over my position. After the report is presented, any member of the House who wishes to speak should come to the microphone that's in the aisle, and those attending virtually and have submitted a request to speak will call you by name. Mr. Tolliver.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
So you may recall last year we made some changes to the Articles and Bylaws, and this year,
Mr. Tolliver, if you would, you can remove your mask so everyone can hear you since we're 6 feet apart.
thank you.
You're welcome. Don't touch it.
I won't even touch this. I'll back off. So you may recall last year we made some changes to the Articles and Bylaws, and then this year, while the rest of the world was watching Tiger King, I, along with our co-chair Tracy Cosby, Josh Tatum, and Joe Skeel, spent a lot of time going through this and making some significant changes. Everybody's had an opportunity to review, or should have had an opportunity to review those changes, but a couple that I'd like to highlight are we reduced the number of membership categories down and basically defined membership as voting or non-voting. And then the other change that I think you would want to know about is the Board of Governors now has the ability to raise dues up to 3%, roughly the cost of living, without having to come to this body. With that being said, if there are any additional questions that people might have, we're happy to entertain those. Otherwise, we'd ask for your support and approval of these changes.
I actually was watching Cobra Kai, so I don't know if you guys were watching Tiger King or not. So
It's a great show too.
Madam Secretary, has the Board of Governors taken position on this matter?
We have, and we approve the proposal as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to adopt the committee's recommendation? Is there a second? Any discussion?
Madam Chair, there's a comment online stating that on page 16, section E1, there's an extra word member that needs to be deleted. I think that's just a typographical correction. If you'll.
Ready to.
Oh, I see it.
Whoever made the motion, I don't know if we need a friendly amendment or just simply correct the typographical error? Mr. Parliamentarian.
Yeah.
It's the reason he's up here, right?
Yeah, sorry, I'm trying to find the error.
Okay.
Yeah, if someone could, if the movement could move to amend.
I'm not sure who moved for, thank you, Ms. Studas. Would you move to amend based upon that recommendation?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
And if whoever seconded it would accept that.
Thank you. Is a second still? Thank you. Second is still valid. Any further discussion or corrections? Any further debate online?
No, ma'am.
Hearing none or seeing none on the chat, all those in favor of adopting and approving the committee's recommendation, please say aye if you're attending in person.
Aye.
Any opposed? Virtual delegates, please vote via the poll that now appears on your screen.
%98 approval.
Thank you. The motion passes. Thank you, Mr. Tolliver.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
The bylaws we just approved gives the board the authority to create membership categories. Therefore, this body no longer needs to address the agenda item related to the retired member category. And because the board voted to support this measure already, the ISBA will now have a retired member category. Thank you. I would like to take the moment to remind everybody to spend some time reading each of the section reports that have been provided to you. They will be shared via email. It will really give you a sense of all the amazing work done by our colleagues in service to the Indiana legal community. It truly is remarkable what happens in 1 year, especially during the year of COVID. So I know as a delegate for many years, sometimes you just flip through them, but make sure you take some time to read them and reach out even to the chairs of the committees as well and thank them for their time and efforts especially during the COVID time, but throughout the service to the Bar Association. Now I'd like to invite Justice Stephen David to the podium where he will lead us through a discussion on two very important topics: remote virtual hearings, what has worked, what has not worked, what are some best practices and challenges lawyers have experienced from court staff and others, and lessons we've learned from COVID-19, removing virtual hearings from the equation. What are other experiences that might shape how we practice law in the future? And as a delegate to the United States Bar Association, it's activities such as this that will ensure your input and help shape the future of how law is practiced in Indiana and throughout the state. So thank you, Justice David.
Thank you, Madam Chair, podium persons, Madam President, President-elect, House of Delegate members, bar members, friends. It's an honor and a privilege to engage in a conversation with you this morning. You know, it seems like only yesterday, but it was actually 40 years ago, about this time, that I was, what do you call those? A rising 2L. I didn't know that existed then, but I was a rising 2L and had the good fortune to start clerking for Richard Enon of Columbus, Indiana, my hometown, while I was in law school. And 40 years ago, Rich lived the Indiana State Bar Association, and he continues to live the Indiana State Bar Association and has, in fact, served as president of our organization. And I hope I am half as committed as he is and has been to that organization. Somebody might even suggest that I'm married to the Indiana State Bar Association, but that's a whole nother conversation. This is my ISBA hat. I have a borrowed but sanitized ISBA mask, and I will not touch anything other than my stuff because I don't want to get in trouble. And thank you, Terry, for going and showing me where to report. I'm wearing this cap because this is actually part of my uniform tomorrow morning. I am the only male entry in the first and hopefully last ever Boone County Olympic distance triathlon. And I'm gonna wear this while I run. The only other entry, the only female entrant is Catherine Pulley, and she's up to her own devices as to what ISBA stuff she's gonna wear. I just want to fully concur in the comments that the Chief Justice made. I mean, isn't she remarkable? I mean, she's wounded, right? She's a COVID combat veteran and remotely spoke to all of you. That's how incredibly important this relationship is. And I appreciate the invitation to be here. The words that I heard yesterday repeatedly, and I've heard again today, and the comments made by the Chief Justice and again throughout the course of this conference have been such as words such as collaboration, cooperation, consensus, relationships, leadership, togetherness, listening, learning, communication. So I think it's important for us to momentarily reflect on that and appreciate, as difficult the circumstances we find ourselves in, that we have each other, and you have this organization, and hopefully you're proud of those men and women who wear the robes and serve with you in this profession called the practice of law. You know, I'm not sure the ISBA and the Supreme Court and the court family have ever been closer and have worked more closely together than we have. And I believe that we are here in Indiana, and what we have here in Indiana between the state bar and the court and all the bars and the courts is something unprecedented, not just in Indiana, but across the United States. And I think I have a little perspective. I am the chair of the Appellate Judges Conference of the Judicial Division of the American Bar Association. So while I don't get around physically, I get around remotely. And I don't think anybody's doing what you all have done and what we've had the honor of doing with you. And we will continue to do that. All the compliments have been handed out. I do want to mention a special thanks to Justin Faulkner, our Chief Administrative Officer, who has worked tirelessly with the Indiana Office of Court Services, our Supreme Court family, with your bar, your staff, your officers, and all of the other bar associations in the state of Indiana. But you're the big bar. You're the umbrella. Now, I want that shout out heard, but I want something else heard. All of our Supreme Court employees are under a secret long-term contract with the court. So don't try to steal any of them. Don't try it. I'll come looking for you. The only exception I know of is my legal advisor, Mitch Osterday, who's getting married at the end of this month, and he's leaving me next year. That's the only one I know that's available. So thanks to you and thanks to the hard work, we are where we are. All the triumphs, all the tribulations, all the struggles we've had, we've worked through together. And what I'd really like to do is just ask you for your comments. And I'd like to focus on two areas. One of which is, let's focus just on remote virtual hearings. Is there any feedback you'd like to give about what has worked, what hasn't worked? What are some of the best practices you may have seen? How would you like to emerge from this? You can share those now. You can share those via the virtual world. You can share those, email me tomorrow, tonight, whenever, and continue to have these discussions. But I'd like to throw that open with the indulgence of your president, Madam Chair, your executive director. Anything you would like to share with me?
David, if I may, I will start the
Yes,
conversation.
please.
As I mentioned, I'm the in-house lawyer, local office attorney for Department of Child Services. And so we do Zoom hearings for most of our review permanency hearings, not our trials. But I will tell you, at first I thought it was interesting. I'm like, I'm not sure if this is going to work. But I think we have seen a turnaround in a number of parents who actually have shown up for hearings because they're at their house. They don't have to worry about transportation. They don't have to worry about necessarily getting out of their pajamas, much to my chagrin sometimes, but they really have accessed it very well. The attorneys in our county have embraced it. Even our older lawyers who I thought might be a little hesitant, love it, because we've also changed it to your hearings no longer all at 9 o'clock. We have 9 o'clock, we have 9:20, we have 9:40, we have 10 o'clock. I will tell you, our county has run, especially my court, has run so smoothly for those Zoom hearings that I appreciate the Supreme Court allowing us to do that. And I think our parents, the participants as well, because it's allowed them to participate better, not have to worry about transportation, some of the things we take for granted, and obviously keep us safe throughout it. So it's worked very well in Delaware County, at least for our juvenile court.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Anyone else? And I think the protocol is to do exactly what you're doing.
Good morning. My name's Robert. I work for the Administrative and Regulatory Enforcement Litigation Section for the AG's office. And so I'm in court all the time. And I would say one of the big pros for remote hearings is when the clerk or the court administrator sends out a calendar invite through Outlook. So I have some courts that they just try to send you login information or they tell you to call a number. And those are the hearings that more than likely end up having technical problems. Whereas if they set it up on Zoom or they set it up on Court Call and they send you the invite directly to your calendar, I don't think I've had a remote hearing that has had a technical problem where they do that. So one of my sort of statewide recommendations would be, to the extent courts can send calendar invites directly to the participating attorneys, those seem to have a lot less issues than ones where they're just emailed login information.
Justice David, I think we have many comments online. And so Mr. Stahl, if you will read those for us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I'm going to take the liberty of editorial discretion.
Don't you always?
You can email me the other stuff.
Well, some of them probably need a little bit more explanation. One of our members, Christy from LaPorte County, has mentioned that discovery is a pain. So that's obviously a challenge that needs to be addressed. Our representative from Hancock County has expressed dissatisfaction with virtual cattle calls in small claims. Courtney Smith from Porter County has stated it's been fantastic to have remote status hearings in Lake County. The process is smooth for family court call days. Christine, oh, that's you telling them to comment. Mark Lopez states virtual hearings have made it more convenient, especially for criminal cases where there are so many check-ins. The representative from Hancock County also stated virtual hearings have worked well. Mark Matheny has stated, I think we need to join the 21st century and continue to have virtual hearings in all non-evidentiary hearings. Carrie Hyatt Bennett has commented on the problem of inconsistency, picking and choosing what hearings can be online and what hearings cannot, can seem punitive at times. Christy from LaPorte County has further commented on the discovery issue. Getting discovery emailed to the court and the other party prior to the hearing has proved to be a little more work, especially when opposing party does not have an attorney. And Courtney Smith of Porter County seconds that comment. Andrew Hicks of Elkhart states specific times work better than cattle calls. Dave Tysing states that virtual hearings save our clients lots of money in not requiring counsel to travel to court. Brenda Roper of Marion County is asking documents to be uploaded at least 2 to 3 days prior to the hearing, which helps. And that's again in reference to the issue of uploading discovery documents that Christy had mentioned. Zach Stock of Hamilton County observes that in one of his cases, opposing county counsel recently asked for an in-person summary judgment hearing on the grounds that virtual hearings are less effective. I wonder what Justice David thinks about the effectiveness of such hearings. And I don't know if you want to pause for any reaction from Justice David.
We can. Justice David, any comments on all of those comments?
I think they're great comments, and I hope there's a mechanism by way which I can get those comments.
Yes. We see a thumbs up from the back.
Great,
so.
thumbs up. You know, number one, my reaction is those are exciting comments because that is exactly what we need as we move forward. And although I hate to utilize a Navy reference, but I will do that with apologies to Justin Faulkner and myself. You know, the court system is a giant aircraft carrier, just like the State Bar Association or the Indy Bar Association. Indy Bar Association is an aircraft carrier, right? It's hard to change course easily. It's hard to move. It's hard to manipulate because there's so many factors to be considered and so many yings and yangs. But what is exciting to me, and certainly exciting to Justin and his team, and certainly exciting to the chief, and I believe it is your State Bar Association today, and that is inside that aircraft carrier, whether it's the State Bar or the court, there are a whole bunch of people running around going, why? Why not? Why can't we? Right? So you may not see it all the time, but it is moving and it is changing course. We're not a unified state. Best practices. You will continue to inform us as to what remote opportunities will continue beyond COVID. So you've got to share what's working, what's not working. You know, speaking as a party of one, I'd sure like to, I know it's an internal conversation, but I'd sure like to eliminate from vocabulary the phrase cattle call. You're not going to tell your client, and we'll show up for a cattle call or something like that. And so I think we have the opportunity with technology to do that. So it's really critical that the state bar continue, to the extent that you're members of local bars continue. What's working best in your community may be different, right? It may be a function of your local culture, could be a function of your judges. And people will reach out to me. This is working really well. X county does this really well. Y county, we're struggling with this. That's important information to have. It's not a matter of slapping somebody upside the head. You're not doing it correctly, or you're doing it the right way and everybody should do it your way. That's information that's been very beneficial to us. So we want those comments. We need your comments. Just as importantly, we need your recommendations. We've got an incredibly talented tech team. I say the best in the nation. And where we can take with your partnership, your input, technology is really limitless on how to make your job easier, how to make it better for your clients without losing any of those essential relationships or services. So I would rather be all ears, but if there's a question, I'll try to answer that. What else would you like to
Well,
tell?
we're looking at a few more, but Justice David, is there anything you've heard from the judges about how lawyers have responded to Zoom or the hearings that are virtual, pros and cons, anything we should be doing differently?
I think the vast majority of the comments I've received have been pro. It's a learning experience for our judges and for you. Some of our judges have done this much more frequently. Some of you are much more experienced in this, and there's been some mentoring going both ways in the various counties. The question is, what's it going to look like? There's been a couple issues where in remote hearings where there's been a concern that there may be a little coaching going on. And how do you deal with that? I've heard conversations, no decisions have been made, but heard conversations between lawyers saying, for example, summary judgment motions. Are summary judgment motions live in the courtroom going to be necessary going forward? Is that something that's perfect for a remote hearing, virtual hearing? And certainly some of the evidentiary hearings that have been transacted have transpired virtually. The key is, which of those make you the most uncomfortable going forward? How do you balance efficiency, time management, still getting the quality legal representation for your client and making sure you get everything in front of that trier of fact? But where's the line as to, wait a minute, I really want that judge to be able to see the demeanor of my client, my witnesses, or opposing client, opposing witnesses, and the interaction, and emerging from COVID, what's that going to look like? And the five of us and the court family want to know what you think, right? I mean, we've gotten where we are by admitting that, or at least I've admitted, you don't want the five of us trying to make all this stuff up, right? We're all in this together. So I think it's very exciting. Our administrative rule, we were in the process of reviewing that, 14, and then COVID hit. So how are we going to emerge from that? Some of you in this room have participated in, some of you Zooming have participated in the Tiger teams. I call them the Tiger teams. You could call them SEAL team, but that would be an inappropriate Navy reference again. But Alpha teams, boots on ground, people that actually will have to live this and understand. The judicial cooperation, when we've asked our judges, we need you to work on this remote jury selection if that's necessary. We need you to figure out how to do this, work with these lawyers. reached out to the state bar and said, we need 4 people, we need 3 people, we need 2 people with this expertise. What else do you think we need? I think it's important. You know that, but maybe you need to be reminded how much of that is transpired, how much of that continues to go on behind the scene. Emailing, texting. What do you think? I don't know. What do you think? Here's what I think. Oh, that's a great idea. That openness, that transparency, that willingness to cooperate, again, is from my perspective, and you can certainly disagree, but from my perspective is just unprecedented and transformational. What other comments before we go to the other one? And I don't know how much time, so somebody's going to have to jump up and down.
Well, I'll let you know if there's a.
Okay, I'm sure. I haven't touched anything, Madam Chair.
How often do I get to dictate what a justice says and does?
Because you asked, I thought I would give some comments.
Please state your name and your county, please.
Sure, I'm Christine Douglas. I'm from Hamilton County, and I only do family laws. So I have had a lot of hearings through COVID. I have loved the discovery hearings via Zoom. I love the enforcement hearings. Those have been great, attorney conferences, but it makes me really nervous doing evidentiary hearings for the reasons you said. There is a value when you bring parties and they have to walk into that courtroom, they are nervous. It's almost like a child going before a parent because they know that they did something wrong. We're hoping that they don't lie, but I do think there's a value having them face to face with a judge. I am nervous about a judge not being able to assess them. I have had problems even on Zoom depositions where I know I can even hear the attorney like coaching them. They have documents in front of them. Sometimes I can tell they're looking at another attorney screen. So I think it's really hard to control that situation. And then the other thing that was really awkward was trying to show the witness an exhibit. And then of course, if it's an exhibit that they don't want to talk about, they can't see. All of a sudden they have tech problems. So they never had tech problems when they had exhibits they wanted to show. When they were being questioned on mine, they all of a sudden, things weren't working. So that's my one concern. I hope I don't sound like an old fuddy-duddy, but I do think there's a value for just in-person evidentiary things.
That's very important. Very important.
Adrienne Rhines-Hammond, Grant County. And first I will note things are very different all over the state as highlighted. And we're doing a lot of in-person hearings and we have throughout all of this in our area, but I have done a Zoom final divorce hearing. And one of the concerns I would note, the rules I got ahead of time said that you should not be with your client for the hearing, that you should be in separate locations, which I had some concerns about because a lot of clients need guidance and all kinds of things. So anyways, I went with my gut and we appeared on Zoom together, but with the mask as needed. And the other party, another concern, pro se individual was roaming around with a cell phone on Zoom the entire house the whole time. And that was very distracting. And I won't name any names, but the particular judge didn't, tell her to sit down on the couch or stay in one place. But there were definitely some issues, I think, hearing clearly and that kind of thing. So echoing the earlier comments and questions, I think that they are an amazing thing for non-evidentiary hearings. But when it comes to high stakes hearings, lots of evidentiary issues. We had testimony about what the appropriate date was that the parties separated. It was in the cross petition, and yet the judge in the final order still got the date wrong. So, I think there's miscommunication, and sometimes, that could end up in some incorrect results. So those are a few of my observations in my limited Zoom experience. I know some of you have been doing a lot of them.
Thank you, Adrienne. And all these comments, even if they're not spoken, that will be collected. Let me tell you what will happen to them. First of all, my phone's back there, so the chief's probably texting, send them to me right now. No, take a couple hours off. But they will be read. I will read them, the chief will read them, my colleagues will read them, Justin will read them, his team will read them, and they will be talked about. That's what's been happening, and that is what will continue to happen. In the innovation initiative, which I'm fortunate and privileged to chair at the present time, we'll have access to this. You know, the Family Law Task Force, our technology working group, we would prefer to have 3 different groups looking at it and have to deal with the lane issues as opposed to nobody looking at it or no one being responsive. So I yield.
Good morning, Amy Noe Dudas, Richmond. In the family bar in particular in Wayne County, we have a lot of attorney conferences and summary argument only in chambers type hearings. A lot of times the clients are required to appear for those, but they sit out in the hallway and do not participate, which can be kind of frustrating for litigants and not know what's going on. And so having those via Zoom or via video conference, even if it's just the attorneys attending, allows those parties not to waste their time sitting in the hallway, and allows us to do that more efficiently. The one thing that I would ask, because I think at this point, at least our judges are making their own decisions as to whether or not they're allowing those kinds of hearings to be held. If there is a streamlined process for a uniformity, I suppose, in terms of how that's done, because we know that, well, I can get one in this court, but not in that court. And then to streamline the process for requesting a particular hearing be set via Zoom or via video conference, that would be helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. And it would be very helpful, again, not tattling, it'd be very helpful to tell us what really, really works and give us some detail as to what really, really works. I mean, I remember when I was a young, and I was young once, trial judge in Boone County, and took over in January, and we're having these pretrial conferences, and they're on the calendar, they're already set, and attorneys keep coming in, and like the third one that particular day, the attorneys were both out of town. They didn't practice actively. They didn't have an office in Boone County. I was like, why did you drive up here? Well, Your Honor, that's how we do it. I'm like, I mean, could we have done this on the phone? I don't have a problem with that. You don't have a problem with that? Well, we never thought we could ask. We were afraid to ask. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for being with us, Justice David. I'm Leslie Hendersaw, and I suppose I'm just going to make a comment. You had commented that some of these really, really work, and it's helpful to know how and why and give you our feedback. My experience has been that these really, really, really work in the virtual setting because the lawyers want them to work and the courts want them to work, because we can't do business in certain circumstances without making them work. And we as the lawyers and the judges really are the commanders of what occurs during those hearings. And I would just encourage us to be as polite, as civil, add as much decorum as we possibly can, and share that with our clients. Although the judge can't see as much when hearings are virtual as he or she can see when we're in the courtroom, they're still making observations. They're still making judgments about what is occurring. And oftentimes I know as advocates, we have difficulty understanding, well, why can't we get this case settled? These are easy facts. This is easy law. Well, sometimes it's because not everybody wants the case to settle. So I would encourage us as the commanders of the courtroom, whether it's actually in the courthouse or in our offices or wherever it may be, to try to keep as much decorum present as we can, and to keep moving to be facilitators rather than obstructors of the virtual processes that we're working under right now.
Thank you. Well said. I think it's really important to and again, I'm reminding you all of the obvious, do not assume anything. You know, maybe I'm the trial judge and I thought I've thought through every possible scenario that might come up, but I'm dealing with my 3 kids at home and I wish they weren't. And I've got family that has COVID and I haven't thought through exactly what could go wrong in this upcoming hearing that starts in 30 minutes and maybe the day before or even the morning of, hey, Judge, got a couple ideas here. I've talked to opposing counsel. Those conversations are still important, So don't hesitate to help our judges help you. And for the judges that are listening, don't hesitate to help your lawyers help themselves. Yes, sir.
Good morning. Scott Yaney, Lake County. One of the things I think I think it's a great tool. It's efficient. It's saving clients time and money. It's making all of us more efficient. But we also do run the risk of losing the human element. Right now, I can look at you and I know we're engaged. You're listening to what I am saying and vice versa. And I may get off cue at some point and you may give me a nonverbal signal that I can pick up. And so I think one of the things we should be mindful about as we're kind of delving into a new area, you know, a lot of us started out on Zoom and we got the camera maybe on our computer. Some of the people you see half of their head or just, we could refine what we were doing. I don't do as much court work, but a couple of nights ago, I was at Redevelopment Commission and you're trying to speak to a whole panel of folks up there and you're looking at their Zoom screens. And it occurred to me going in that I wanted to approach that hearing with the same energy I would have if I was with them in the room. So I set it up so that I would be standing, that I would have a certain presentation. I thought about lighting, but part of that was so that hopefully they could understand me and signal to me, hey, we're not with you. Maybe you could go into this point a little bit more and vice versa. So I think as part of this, maybe that's part of our legal education is how to effectively communicate in this new environment.
Thank you. And for any of the Supreme Court members or Supreme Court family that's listening, maybe we need to translate those concerns into our upcoming new judges orientation, right? Fundamentals of monitoring your computer and being engaged and not being engaged. Cell phones, right? Blessing, curse. If I'm in a meeting and have my cell phone, I usually try to take it out and put it upside down. So I convey to the other person that they're more important than the cell phone, or if something's really important going on, not as important as the conversation, I may say, look, I'm going to put this here because, I got a dog at the vet or I'm expecting a call from the Chief Justice. So I may have to step outside, but I'm going to tell you that I'm not just going to be looking at this. The 5 of us are concerned about taking our laptops into the Supreme Court and having everything there online because of the perception. Not even the reality of the challenge, but the perception. So we have to think in terms of that in our trial courts. And so what's the blessing and the curse of this remote? And where's that center? Where's that place that you're comfortable with, the courts are comfortable with? And we need to know that, because as hard as we're trying, we're not still practicing law. And if your client is sitting there, right, and they have the perception that the judge is doing something else or not paying attention, they may be, but if there's a perception there, then we need to try to figure out how to do that. And best practices.
Justice David, I know we have a couple of people, at least one person
Sure.
virtually who would like to speak.
Fire away.
I believe it's Stephen Cohen. Mr. Cohen, if you could unmute your microphone. No longer wishes to speak, I suppose. I'm getting the
He was
hands.
probably just asking me to take my
We'll let you know.
hat
if he
off.
speaks up.
Thank you. Either that or I'm sliding into second.
Yes, thank you very much. Your conferences. I think going said anything about the older generation. I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. What I was going to say is I've just submitted an article to the litigation committee takes up many of the things that are being discussed today, and civility really demands it. The effect of COVID on the older day, we're experiencing too many people that are having problems even when they're younger, and we know that this can continue to affect people going forward. So it's important that the issue of being able to conduct hearings and be able to present your arguments by telephonic or Zoom, whatever it may be.
Well, I think a good example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This may be part of the problem.
Is very important. On the other hand, I've submitted numerous, if you don't want to do the work, that's another problem. I just think that it's important. And I think that one of the other things is the court can look to the Cook County Circuit Court and see how they're presenting their Zoom hearings, because every court now has a function that is so far superior to anything I've seen that I think it's worthwhile investigating. Thank you very much.
Ouch, Illinois. Okay, we'll look at that. And if it is, we'll borrow it. No, it's an ongoing system of improvement. And again, you're a part of that, and we are always trying to innovate, maybe frustrate some of you on occasion that we're asking some of these tough questions, but you certainly can ask some of those tough questions.
We have some more online comments
Sure.
as well. Justice.
Wonderful. Okay. Heather George Myers has observed that third parties have been in the background, even after having been told they could not be there. They were discovered when the phone fell and they were standing there. Stephanie Trushin from Marion County says that she's been told by litigators that well, they speak very highly of virtual hearings, but they do have concerns about building good relationships with judges and court staff. These are young lawyers who worry that lack of in-person interaction might make it difficult for them to prove their skills and demonstrate their competence. Tracy Cosby of Marion County has observed that virtual hearings have made the courts more accessible in the context of family law for individuals who are working and lack the ability to take a day off from work without risking termination or sanction on the job, because they can take a break and go to a conference room or even sit in their cars to participate in the hearings and the proceedings. That has reduced the amount of failure to appears in these important family law proceedings that may otherwise be continued due to a failure to appear. Jessica Merkel of Monroe County states that virtual hearings, particularly in family law context, reduce the barriers to the courts for individuals and makes it more equitable. A delegate from Hancock County states it would be nice if the rules for advanced filings of exhibits were consistent. It is difficult to remember the different procedures or preferences of 92 counties and the multiple courts in each. Brenda Roper of Marion County states effectiveness is a gamble because it is more difficult to access the truthfulness of witnesses and review exhibits in the virtual world. For the in-person summary judgment request, she says that she would grant the request with social distancing guidelines in place. It is noted that attendance is greater in the virtual world, which is great, but at times in-person is needed. A delegate who is identified only by the model number of his or her cell phone says those of us who are at high risk have been permitted to continue a litigation practice. Civility demands cooperation to prevent the risk of COVID and allows for more effective administration of justice. Also, Cook County Circuit Court's Zoom system is terrific. Oh, that was Stephen.
Ouch again.
Yeah, well,
We will not be outdone by Illinois.
Courtney Smith of Porter County states Tyler Technologies does not allow for video uploads, so sharing evidence for virtual hearings is sometimes difficult. Odyssey should allow for service without e-filing. Seamus Boyce stated, this is already something I understand is in the works, but there is a great opportunity to reduce pulling non-party essential workers away from work duties by having them participate remotely without having them sit in court for half a day, medical providers, education staff, etc. Donna Bays of Boone County states in guardianships, wards in memory care can attend safely from the facility with nursing or social workers present who can explain repeatedly after the hearing ends, less excluding when they are as present as others in the case. Martha Lehman of Marion County states virtual hearings have been a real asset during this time. We've been doing them for years in bankruptcy court. That said, in-person hearings provide opportunities for collegiality and compromise that simply do not happen in a virtual hearing. I would like to see a hybrid system going forward. Status conferences and discovery conferences can be handled using technology, but some clients want and deserve an in-person hearing. Stephanie Reinhardt-Rock states, after years of driving all over Indiana for non-evidentiary hearings through high winds, snowstorms, and icy conditions that may not exist in the court's own jurisdiction, the ability to conduct virtual hearings is a game changer for safety beyond COVID and beyond cost and time savings.
May I comment? Just, I got this vision of the chief's email and Justin's email and the chief. And just on one of those, and I'm sure your minds are racing as to one comment I heard them all, but one comment that resonated was there may be other people in the room, right, during a Zoom hearing. And it harkens back to, as a trial court judge, I'm sure someone told me to do this or suggested. I have so many great mentors. But when I had a jury trial and you go to day 2, I would always ask and I would tell them, and the jury sworn, I would always ask them every day, has anyone approached you or attempted to talk to you about this case? Have you done any independent investigation or talked to anybody about this case yourself? Have you formed or expressed an opinion as the ultimate issue and got a no, right? So if there was something, at least I had something to go back to. So, and I'm sure some of our trial judges doing this, I hadn't thought about that. I've had lots of conversations with trial judges. I hadn't thought about if I was an attorney, Steve David, stage name Steve David. Is there anybody in the room? Steve David, you know, or the judge doing that, right? Maybe some counties are doing that, but my point is these conversations and your willingness to talk to your local bar, your willingness to talk to through that bar, through the big bars, through your bar to the judiciary for best practices, to those local judges that do family law at your local meetings. I did a lot of things wrong, but one thing we did do in Boone County is we had periodic meetings with judges and lawyers that practice there. What do you like? What do you don't like? What can we do better? So now more than ever, that's unfortunately necessary. But I think the exciting thing is when we emerge from this, and we will, you know, I refuse to accept this as the new normal. It's a temporary abnormal. Then let's take all these great things and make them better and get rid of everything we don't ever want to do again. What other comments do we have? This is invaluable to us.
There are several that touch on the idea of, or on the issue of serving documents on pro se litigants after the initial service of process. And there's some sort of chat between the delegates on here that I won't go through, and you can read when we provide this to you. But
if you're interested in that, the technology and the innovation group, and if some of you want to volunteer to be involved in some of that, I know some people can make that happen. They're looking at those kinds of issues. So if you have a special passion for that, let us know.
There are a number of additional comments that are touching on the value sometimes of being able to look someone directly in the eye, whether it's court or witnesses. Hang on just a second here. Mike Pagano in Lake County says the remote hearing issues pro and con have merit, but I would hope we could all agree that live streaming court sessions has helped expose and curb some bad behavior that for too long has remained hidden. Don Smith of Marion County says, I would hope that after we return to quote unquote normal, the parties in the courts would have the option to agree that certain hearings be conducted virtually. And that's all we have.
Any other comments? We can turn to that second question, Madam Chair, if you'd like to.
Please do.
And you know, this is not period, end of sentence, end of discussion. Keep the cards and letters coming. 317-224-4293. 317-224-4293. I change it every day. No, I'm just kidding. 317-224-4293. Stephen.david@courts.in.gov. I'll get it to the right person. And you are the right people here in the room and across the state. I mean, this is a team effort, right? We all have different roles, but we're all in this together. And the better you are, the better resolutions your clients are going to have, and the happier everybody's going to be. You know, case processing times, adequate resources, resource allocation. We need you to tell us what's important to you, what's less important to you. We need you to tell us and give us your best recommendations. So separate and apart from the remote hearings, virtual hearings, which is huge. And all right, the biggest takeaway so far is you'd rather live in Cook County. Go for it. No, we're going to look at that. I'm like, there's got to be something there. I'll come back and say, aha, it's not. So Mary Depry, if you're watching, can you look at Cook County? She probably has done that 2 years ago. Lessons learned, general lessons learned from COVID-19. I mean, I wish I could tell you that next Thursday it's over and everything's going to be great, but we will get there. We will get there. Lessons learned from COVID-19. So we removed the virtual hearings, remote hearings from the equation. What other experiences, good, bad, ugly, going forward that you want to see, don't want to see to help shape the future of the practice of law, of your courts, of our justice system in Indiana, be it related to juvenile, family, civil, criminal? Comments? Maybe I've overstayed my welcome.
And Justice David, I assume that, I'm sorry, if people will continue to make their comments in the chat, that will make sure it's passed on to the Supreme Court. So no, it's not.
No, I'm just kidding.
Over.
I'm
Okay,
just
sorry.
kidding.
But yeah, if you did not have a chance to chat, or if you were in person and didn't feel comfortable approaching the microphone, please enter it in the chat and we'll pass it along. And Madam President.
Thank you. Justice David, one of the issues that the lawyers tackled at the American Bar Association House of Delegates meeting was a continued, what I characterized as an ambush on the practice of law. Big businesses are waiting, lurking, have been waiting and lurking. And about every quarter, I see an article in a Forbes magazine about when are these lawyers going to get out of the way and let big business take over and deliver legal services at a pace that will meet consumer demand. And part of that includes, or at least Hendersol's perception of what it includes, is the ability then of the big businesses to deliver these legal services and obtain the benefits of the aspects of the business of the practice of law. All that means money. It is a big issue that has been out there for a long time. And the future of the practice of law that you asked about, I think must include exactly what we've been doing, with the ability to more efficiently deliver services and do it in a manner that is consistent with our established human rights, Constitution, and little things like that. So I would encourage us to continue to keep our eyes on the horizon. I would ask that the court keep its eyes on the horizon, because there are people that believe that big business that is not required to comply with our rules of ethics, rules of procedure, constitutional requirements, they're waiting to take over this industry. And we need to be very careful about that. So I would hope that the court would consider that potential cloud that's out there, because of course the ethics and the protection of the human rights is, I think, what most of us go into the practice to accomplish. So I keep standing here thinking that all I'm doing is making comments. I guess I just want to keep that on the forefront of our minds.
Thank you. And you know, back to the, maybe it's a bad Steve David analogy, bad metaphor, the aircraft carrier. There has to be, since it moves slower at times than you might think, there has to be someone or someone's paying attention to what lies ahead, right? You've got to be thinking, and I think I'm confident that we're doing the very best we can. That doesn't mean we can't do better, and we need your help. Looking 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years from now. I mean, who would have thought 2.5 years ago, when there was this general pandemic conference, that we would send a team from Indiana? Not every state was there. Not every court was represented of the 10, 15 states, 20 states, but Indiana was there. Now, I got to tell you, at the time, Justin Fortner, well, I won't include Justin. I thought, Chief, you want me to go to Omaha? What did I do wrong? But that was a pandemic conference. What's your systems? What's your practices? The fact that our Justin Fortner came from the military, where you trained to do your job in any combat environment. You know, how many of you have done wills or powers of attorney in your chemical protective equipment? Anybody here besides me? Okay, so you can do your job under any circumstances, working remotely. So we need that help. Yes, sir.
Ron Walker, Marion County. Good luck in the race tomorrow. Please try.
I'm going to win my division.
Please, please try to keep up with Commander Pulley of the Navy.
She's working much harder than I have been. So I've been a lackey. Ooh, that's another Navy term.
We do have some online comments as well.
Great, please.
Martha Lehman in Marion County says, I think that we need to make a special outreach to younger lawyers who still need mentoring in the virtual world. And there is another comment related to that, if you'll bear with me. Stephanie Trukin of Marion County seconds that and says that my friends and I are all young lawyers and feel a bit isolated, especially those of us in smaller firms. Great mentoring within the firm, but not a lot of opportunity to interact with the legal community as a whole. Mary Slade adds that a collaborative effort of the Electronic Records Task Force of PTRP benefited everyone, no matter your tech savviness and experience level. Let's see, Skylar Geller says, virtual mediations work great. In my experience, it can cut down on party posturing and make the process more efficient and effective. Mark Lopez comments as a follow-up to President Hendersaw, would ask for thoughts on Utah allowing non-lawyer ownership of law firms. Christy in LaPorte County says, I became a remote notary, so we are doing notarization remotely, and we are more organized, and we are looking to go paperless. Although she says we have some limitation with the remote notarizations. And that's what we have so far.
Well, I think that's the second or third comment from Mr. Lopez, so I think we're cut him off. No, encourage the comments. Yes, sir.
Good morning, Justice David. Michael
morning.
Tolbert, Lake County Bar Association. I just wanted to say all the comments that I've heard today about virtual meetings and kind of pushing ourselves into like this new era of handling hearings is all great. But I also want to make sure that we keep in mind that we have to protect our state and our lawyers from encroachment from others that, you know, with virtual meetings, it makes it a lot easier for folks to come in and encroach on our territory. So I think that all has to be considered as well. Virtual platforms are great, but I also don't want us to Zoom ourselves out of business. We have lawyers coming from all over the country. Geography a lot of times is a barrier to make it a lot harder for folks to come in and to gain some sort of a economic advantage. With Zoom and with all these other virtual platforms, it makes it a lot easier for lawyers from other places to come in and to practice in certain areas that geography has protected us. So I would just say keep that in mind. Virtual platforms are great, but we also have to protect lawyers as well here in this state. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And yeah, help us remember that. And we all know, regardless of what we're talking about, the conversation, just because it's easy doesn't mean it's the best thing to do. And again, you know, where on that continuum should we be? Yes.
Hi, Patty McKinnon from Indianapolis. I've been trying to refrain from commenting, but I can't wait any longer. A couple of things to think about when you are coming up with new task force recommendations on the area of family law. One thing you might want to consider is that there is one of our speakers yesterday, Ryan Kassman, admitted that it is much more difficult to settle cases through Zoom in his experience as a mediator. So while it may help, and the civil mediator also said the same thing. So if we're going to a mandatory system on mediation, you may want to take that into consideration. Also, as an Indiana citizen, I would hope that in any case, if a citizen wished an in-person hearing, that it would be granted, even if that meant continuing the case out until that option was available. I would see that as a fundamental right of a party to insist on an in-person hearing. Finally, I am very concerned as a mother to the effect that COVID has had on women who are attorneys. My children are grown, my 3 children, but I cannot imagine having 3 young children and managing a full-time practice at the same time I worked as an attorney. Given the demands of in-home schooling, of running a household, of just being home and trying to manage a practice. So in looking on trial court judges complaining or on appellate opinions or Supreme Court opinions where there has been an attorney who has asked for a continuance due to family obligations and the trial court has denied it, and then the case has been resolved and the party is seeking an appeal, please keep that in mind. And please keep in mind that there are some estimates that we have lost 1 million women from the workforce of the US due to COVID. So how does that affect us as an association? What women do we have who have left firms or left even government jobs, not even government, but government jobs or clerkships or other positions because they simply cannot practice law as a female and be a mother as well. So that is something that I am very concerned about, and I would hope our association would keep in mind in planning our long-range planning and in looking at it to, again, increase the diversity of partners, to decrease the diversity on the bench, and to increase the diversity of our legal profession as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Patty, and don't ever hesitate to speak up. I'm not personally aware of any conversations at the present time that would result in mandatory mediation. So I hope there's not some misinformation about that. All very relevant thoughts and considerations. Anyone else?
Justice David, if I may, I
Of
know the
course.
comment that really hits home to me is the reaching out to the young lawyers. I've mentioned before, that's where I came from. I came up through the bar. I know that Mr. Stahl, Mr. DeCitis, and Mr. Tolbert, and the list goes on, and Holly Judge Harvey, who's coming up as well. We have a great organization with the Young Lawyers section. They can work with each other, but I would encourage you to reach out to the younger lawyers. I think there is an isolation that goes on, especially if you're new to the practice. It's hard to understand kind of, you get the guidelines of when you're in court by looking and watching other attorneys. So that may be difficult. So I would just encourage them not only to work through the young lawyer section here, but also to reach out to those younger lawyers.
I implore you, you're doing so much, but particularly right now in the midst of COVID, you know, it's probably 2 or 3 times a week that I'll have a conversation with a recent grad or more if it's an email or a law student, and I'm so far away removed from that experience that but I can remember I would no more have reached out to a lawyer as I would have intentionally put my hand on a stove, right? Just fear, garbling the words, vomiting, whatever. And they are not desperate, but desperate for that connection. The law schools are doing everything they possibly can. I'm teaching part-time LLM class on Tuesday nights, and it's virtual, but it's spread out, but a lot of it's remote. Any extra time you have to just volunteer, send an email, or if you meet someone or see someone you don't know and they look young, they look like they're in law school, says I'm in law school, introduce yourself. It would mean so much to them. And I keep telling them to reach out to you, that you can have a conversation. It doesn't mean that you think they want you to hire them. I said, no one's going to turn you down. Trust me. Okay. They'll have a conversation. It may not be a long conversation. They may preface it with, you know, we're not hiring, but don't hesitate to do that. So, you know, please, if you have any extra time, help them out, because they're the future of the bar, like in the state bar, and they're the future of the bar, like in the profession, right? Golf lessons, golf hit tips.
Another past young lawyer chair.
Bill Jonas, South Bend. Justice David, I just wanted to reiterate what Chief Justice Rush said in her statement too, that also for young lawyers, JLAP is available. And it does not have to be an addiction issue, a mental health issue. It can be any kind of stressor that is going on. Those are confidential, and there is the opportunity for contact, for feedback, and for some collegial activity through JLAP communication. And so keep that in mind.
Thank you, Bill. Yeah, Terry and Loretta Oleski have just done an amazing job. I mean, if there are JLAP programs just dealing with COVID, right? Just places you can go. And I don't want to date myself, and most of you won't even get this reference, but there was a commercial once. This is not your father's Oldsmobile. Sexist, okay. Gender inappropriate, but that was the commercial. This is not your father and mother's JLAP anymore. They are bobbing and weaving as better than any other entity like that in the United States, and I think they've been recognized for that. So what do you need? What would you like to see? So thank you, Bill, for poking me to mention. We'll create it. We'll find the means by which to create that. Our judges are using it. I'm a JLAP volunteer. There's probably a bunch of us in this room that have utilized JLAP services. Okay, so
Justice David, we need to move on with the program.
Okay.
I want to thank you for leading our discussion. I want to thank the members for their participation on these important topics. Are there any last comments you'd like to make?
I'd just like to share a quotation from Abraham Lincoln that I think underscores the value of these conversations, the value of your conference. In this and like communities, public sentiment is everything. With public sentiment, nothing can fail. Without it, nothing can succeed. So on behalf of Chief Justice Rush and my colleagues, Justice Massa, Justice Slaughter, and Justice Goff, we are forever grateful for the partnership, the collaboration, and just the hard but great work that we do each day with you. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Justice
everyone.
David.
I haven't touched the podium.
And please send our well wishes to Chief Justice Rush for her continued recovery.
I will. I will probably have text saying, you should have said this.
I would like to invite Amy Noe Dudas to the podium to share the nominations committee report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm short and I can't touch the microphone, so I apologize. On behalf of the nominating committee of the House of Delegates, which was comprised of myself as chair, James Williams of Muncie, Ann Notek of Brownsburg, Joseph Fuchetto of Bloomington, Kayla Grimes of Richmond, and Scott Wiley of Evansville, we are charged with nominating the chair-elect of the House of Delegates. The committee met via Zoom on June 2nd at 3 o'clock, and we nominate the Honorable Holly Harvey of Bloomington to fill the role of chair-elect of the House of Delegates. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept the committee's recommendation? Second? Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of the committee's adopting the committee's recommendation, please say aye if you're attending in person.
Aye.
Any opposed? Virtual delegates, please vote via the poll that should appear on your screen. Do we have a vote?
Not yet.
100%.
100%. There you go. Congratulations to Judge Harvey. Is there any old business to come before the House? Any new business to come before the House? I want to thank each and every one of you for attending today or attending virtually via Zoom. This is a new platform for us. Hopefully you think it went well. I think it went well, but I want to thank you for your comments and your participation. This is your organization, and we are a great organization because of you, and also because of the staff and Joe. So I want to thank them again, but thank each of you as well. So now, before I have my final act as chair, first of all, hand sanitizer. I'll wipe down the podium, wipe down the new gavel, and it's sealed. So I would, final act of House of Delegates chair, I'd like to invite the incoming chair, Michael Desitis, to join me at the podium, and I will don my mask for this. Mr. Desitis was elected by the House of Delegates last year to follow me as chair, and I would now like to pass the gavel and allow him to wrap things up, so give me one moment. Congratulations. The podium is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson Calhoun, for your service, not only during this most recent year, but also for your wide-ranging leadership to our bar for many years. President Leslie Hendershaw, it was my privilege serving you. Enjoy this next year. It will also be my honor to work with our incoming president, my friend, and Lake County colleague, Michael Tober. Additionally, thank you to all of you delegates and esteemed guests for volunteering your time to attend this year's meeting. I look forward to serving the House in the coming year and hope you all return to next year's meeting. As one final housekeeping note, for the in-person participants, we will take a 15-minute break before the assembly meeting so that attendees can grab some fresh air and this room can be sanitized. With no new business coming to our attention, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn. Is there a second? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? This meeting is now adjourned.